In the last few years, there have been a flood of video game remakes and remasters. Help! I'm drowning! Help! Every couple days, another one gets announced or released, and the quality gap in these is massive. It's like the Grand Canyon of making people buy things a second time. You have remasters, remakes, ports, definitive editions, re-releases, HD versions, next-gen upgrades. I mean, what's going on? It's too much. Get it away. There are way too many remasters coming out, and it's actually becoming a problem in the gaming industry. Come along with me. Let's talk about it. So what the heck is a remaster? Is it any different from a remake, a re-release, or re-zero? I'm gonna lay down how I define things so we don't get all confused here. You throw the word remaster at 10 different people and you'll get 132 different definitions. I don't want to start the second intergalactic war of remasters, so this is the first type we're gonna talk about. And it's the most standard method of re-releasing older games. At the minimum, it usually involves upgrading the graphics up to HD or even 4K sometimes. Developers will go in and actually rework the textures, remake them from scratch. Give them some more detail. Ooh, look at that. The audio is usually reworked, with some games even bringing back the original voice actors to re-record their lines in higher definition audio. Sometimes you'll get a whole new reworked soundtrack with an orchestra this time instead of MIDI audio. I would say remasters are in the middle ground in terms of how much work devs put in and how much it improves the experience over the original game. Now, remakes are a whole different story. They can go anywhere from just rebuilding a game in a whole new engine to completely tearing the whole thing apart and remaking the entire story. They can be drastically different from the original game. Mafia Definitive Edition, despite not being called a remake, is definitely a from the ground up reconstruction of the original game in a vastly better looking engine. You're talking 2002 graphics here, and look at them now. I mean, that is incredible. This is a remake. This ain't no upscale to some HD graphics. There's a whole new graphic. You can't just slap HD on the box and make a game go from looking like this to this. The ultimate example of a remake is the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where they have taken the original game, split it up into 3 parts, made way more content for each part, changed the story itself, and drastically improved the visuals and the gameplay itself. It went from a turn-based combat system to a more action-based combat system. The characters are now fully realized 3D models instead of the 2-polygon cloud here. The story itself is going in a different direction. There's 3 games now instead of 1. It is a different world from the original game. That is a true remake. Developers invest a lot more time, money, and energy into remakes like this than they do with simple remasters. And the result is pretty clear. You get a completely new experience from the original game that brings it all the way forward to feeling like a brand new game in the modern era. Sometimes you can't even recognize the game after it gets remastered. Who are you? Honestly, the other terms that I mentioned earlier are kind of goofy. They're just thrown in there to confuse us all so we don't actually know what's going on. An HD version is just a light remaster where they upscale the graphics a bit and make it look a little better than the original. Ports are just straight conversions to make a game play on new hardware. It doesn't really come with many reworks or improvements. It just lets you play it on modern machines. Next-gen updates just mean the game runs a little better on the PS5 and Xbox Series X than it did on the Xbox One and the PS4. And Definitive Edition means nothing because nobody uses the word in the same way. Rockstar, how dare you define this as the Definitive Edition of Grand Theft Auto, unless you mean definitively the worst thing my high-definition eyes have had the misfortune of defining as a video game in all my years. Cause then you'd be correct. How about you go remaster the way you run your business? Now that all of us who don't share a name with the Heart Attack in a Can brand of energy drink know what a remaster is, we can talk about the reason for all this nonsense. Like all things in life, I believe this is more of a circle than a square. What do I mean by that? I have no idea. I just know that in video essays I'm supposed to use a bunch of big phrases and words that no one, even myself, understands because it makes it sound like I have a good point because no one wants to think about it. And the point I'm making is that there are 3 reasons why we're getting so many remasters these days. I'll go in order of glass half full of video game water. Ooh, wow, look at the physics, so impressive. To most depressing. Why is this happening? Someone get me a small violin! The best purpose of a re-release is to bring a beloved, fantastic game to modern audiences who haven't had the chance to play it. This could mean remastering or simply porting an older game that isn't available now to modern consoles like the Switch, the PS5, the Xbox Series X, PC. Now this is what I like. It's video game preservation. It lets the little kids play the big boy games from back in the day. These types of re-releases are great because it gives new players access to games that would have been lost to older consoles. Not everyone was around for the PS2 era, and bless your soul if you weren't, because you missed one of the greatest eras of video games ever that we will ever have in all future time, forever. Great console. But through remasters, remakes, ports, HD editions of games from that era, you can play them now. You can join in on the fun. Everyone's welcome. Come in. We're playing Devil May Cry 3. The other reason why remakes and remasters are so good is because some games, they didn't age too well. Oh, look, oh my eyes, look at that. I have to admit, I have never played The Witcher 1 because have you seen how clunky the gameplay looks? I mean, I take one look at it and it looks like trying to knit a sweater for grandma, but you're wearing baseball mitts on your hands and they're on fire. Ah! Luckily, CD Projekt Red is remaking the whole game in Unreal Engine 5, which is going to make it feel way more modern, get modern gameplay systems, quality of life features. It should look probably a little better than it does right now. Probably better than that. And it's going to make it very accessible for people like me because
ain't nobody got time for that.
Now, a very real reason why companies produce so many remasters is because their fountain of creativity is looking a bit like the Sahara Desert. It's bone dry up in there. Now, I don't want to stay on this point too long because gaming companies do enough to embarrass themselves without people like me stepping in. But I'd have to imagine their business meetings go something like this. Do you have any ideas for our next game? No, not really. Should we just make the old one again? I don't know. I mean, is it going to take much effort? Probably not. All right, time for a remaster. Now, I'd like to think the planning process is a little more complicated than, why we gotta make a new game when we already made the old one? But I also started the sentence with, I'd like to. It's just easier for studios to slap HD on a game and upscale it a little bit, sell it again for full price than to try to come up with a bunch of new ideas and build a new game from scratch. My gosh, someone else needs to handle that. I'm not qualified. You know, me, the game studio. The final reason why so many remasters and remakes are being shoveled out the door like high definition dirt is, well, I'll let an old classic Oscar deserving movie explain for me.
First of all, congratulations.
2K games.
Hello, I like money.
What inspired you to build a second?
Mafia 2.
Right next door to the original.
Money.
Alright, great. Well, that about wraps up that section. Let's just move on. I would like to put a spotlight on some of the best remaster make definitive edition HDs that we have and shoot an orbital laser at the worst ones in existence. In the Hall of Fame we have Final Fantasy VII Remake, Resident Evil 2, Dead Space, Yakuza Kiwami 2, Demon Souls, Shadow of the Colossus, The Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. Look at this game. That is fantastic. My gosh. Halo, the Master Chief Collection, now, not when it launched, not back then, but it's good now. And the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. 3 games in one for $60. I mean, come on. From EA? Are you the same EA I'm always talking about? My gosh, that is a good move. Now in the absolute sweaty armpits of the video game industry, we have the Hall of Shame. These include Mafia 2 Definitive Edition. They should have just called it the Broken Edition. Grand Theft Auto, the Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, which could also win an award for the worst name in a video game. The Silent Hill HD Collection, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, the FOMO Edition, Secret of Mana, Why Have You Done This? Warcraft 3, Reforged into being a significantly worse version than the original. And unfortunately, anything to do with GoldenEye. They're all bad. Stop this. Just give us a proper remake. Why can't you just fix GoldenEye? We want it back. I'd like to give a dishonorable mention to a PS5 remaster of a PS4 remaster of a PS3 game that already looked pretty good. Yes, I'm talking about The Last of Us remake. I don't think we need to remaster PS3 games yet at all. They're not even retro. And now we're remastering PS4 games? Huh? Let me list some games I would love to see a remake for. Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy VI, Xenogears, Morrowind, Ocarina of Time. Imagine the horse running through here with the music playing, but it's in HD. And probably like Pong or something, because imagine this game in 120 FPS.